St. Augustine, Florida has been a cradle of culture and history since 1565. With such deep roots, sometimes it is easy to overlook the absence of a key element in the growth of the nation's oldest city. This is an opportunity to rediscover a once global enterprise born from St. Augustine's waters. This is Ancient City Shrimp.
My name is Brendan Burke. I work at the St. Augustine Lighthouse Museum. I'm a maritime archaeologist here, and I've been working with the history of the American shrimping industry for the past 8 years. The shrimping industry became established around 1900. Prior to that, people were eating and catching shrimp around the U.S. Southeast, but not in commercial quantities or shipping them elsewhere. A man named Mike Salvador really started the industry along with lots of other families, and it was a family endeavor. The Salvador family, the Bersaghi family, the Poli family were some of the largest entrepreneurs and movers behind commercial shrimping. But it was a combination of other fishermen, other entrepreneurs, businessmen, shippers, people that had technological know-how, business know-how to pull an entire industry together. And that happened by the 19-teens. And all of a sudden you had a connection between a market in the U.S. Northeast as well as a provider in the U.S. Southeast. So shrimp were being shipped on ice from here to Fulton Fish Mark in New York. Well, it's funny because the shrimping community itself is really, it's not as much of a geographic thing as it is a group of families and individuals that are associated with it. So when you say the shrimping community, especially in the early days, you have to include Fernandina in Florida, St. Augustine. Those are the two big areas because the commercial shrimping industry really got on its feet in Fernandina. By the 1920s, it starts moving to St. Augustine wholesale, and you start having families move not only themselves but their fleets and their fish markets and fish houses and docks here to St. Augustine. In the early years, I would characterize the majority of the boats that were being built as shrimp boats from 1919 on until really World War II is mostly Greek builders. Now other folks were involved, and certainly a lot of the labor on dockside had to do with African American labor. And that trend continued really through the 1980s, where you had fish houses, and today as well, where you have fish houses, a lot of the labor is African American labor that's on the heading line and on the processing line.
My name is Otis Mason. I'm a resident of St. Augustine, Florida. Born and raised in the Lincolnville section of St. Augustine. Back during the early 40s and the late 30s, St. Augustine was a mecca for seafood, primarily the fishing and shrimping industry. The fishing boats were lined up all the way from King Street down to the Little Links, which we referred to back during that time. It was a very large industry and employed quite a few folks. We had shrimp boats coming in from Brunswick, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, as well as St. Augustine area. And this is where they would unload their products and they would be processed and shipped out, I guess, all over the country. But it was a very large industry which employed quite a few people. And we also had on the other side of the river, opposite where the boats were docking, the shipbuilding industry. They would build the boats across the river as well. So when you combine that with the actual shrimping industry, fishing industry, you had quite a few people employed. And as a teenager running around in Lincolnville, I was one of those who would go down to the shrimp dock and would help head some of the shrimp. And as I recall, I think we would get about a quarter a bucket.
The major decline in American shrimping occurred towards the late 1970s, early 1980s, mid-1980s. It started as a slow roar that increased in pace, in volume, and crushed a once very large and proud fleet down to something that's in this part of the Southeast is down to about 1/10 of what it was 30 years ago. Deflation of shrimp combined with inflation of fuel prices drove a lot of people out of the industry then. However, that's not the biggest thing. The biggest influence on the decline of American shrimping is imported shrimp. Today, if you put 10 shrimp on a plate, one of them will be from the United States, and one of them will be from somewhere else. The importation of shrimp has depressed, driven, and crushed an industry.
My name is Karen Martinez. I've lived in St. Augustine for about 12 years. The market's been here for about 40 years, and I think it's the oldest. Here and Leonardi's Nursery are the oldest family-owned businesses on this side of the island. We try to get local shrimp whenever we can. You know, not only does it support local people, as we're a small local business, you know, when you shop in here, you're directly supporting a bunch of small, you know, local families, but you know, the local shrimp business supports the local guys, and I think we've got the best shrimp in the world right here in St. Augustine. The local shrimp that we get here, it literally comes straight from the boat, because there's usually starfish and little bait fish mixed in with it that we have to pull out. So I know it comes right from the boat. You know, there's no middleman really. You know, they take it right off the boat and you know, weigh it out and bring it right over here.
They were good shrimp. They were tasty shrimp.
There's always room, almost always room for growth. In this case, our fleet is down to such a small percentage of what we know could be sustainable for this region. Making sure that we invest in our local fleet by buying local helps keep them around, number one. It helps also because they stay around and because there's the promise of a future, it keeps future generations entering that field. The average age of a shrimper now is probably older than it's ever been. The average age of shrimp boats is definitely older than it's ever been. And so that everything is trending the wrong way. In the past few years, we have had an increase in the price of shrimp, which has helped the fleet. There has been some small amount of re-interest in re-entering the fishing fleet itself.
Supporting local business is a cornerstone of the American experience. While we can't change federal regulations, we can change our purchasing habits. Demand local shrimp. By making the effort to buy local shrimp, we ensure that St. Augustine shrimp boats stay in our waters, and the community can continue to benefit from the sea.